Jason swung the door and walked out with a suitcase, and Elena stood in the corridor in her dress as the corridor lights hummed overhead. Betrayal hit in a precise, harsh way, a suitcase handle slipping from his hand, the scrape of the wheels on carpet, the click of the door. Elena's jaw tightened. She put a hand to the small scar at her left eyebrow as if that would keep her steady. She did not cry first. She moved toward the ballroom, and guests turned like a slow tide of silence pressing against her. Elena stepped into the hotel bar because there were fewer people and a bartender who knew how to keep his face neutral. She kept walking while a bridesmaid, Marta, reached for her arm. Elena, come sit. Marta, what happened? Elena's hands were cold. She took off her jacket and wrapped it around herself. The betrayal made her fingers go numb where the simple silver ring still sat on her hand. She tightened her fist and then let it open. She wanted to keep the ring on because it was proof of a plan that had collapsed. She also wanted to toss it against the marble and be done. The bar smelled of lemon oil and spilled champagne. Declan Hart sat in a corner booth, sleeves buttoned, watch face low against his wrist, watching without staring. Elena noticed him because he moved into the light at the same moment she needed space. He did not move toward her until Marta had let go and taken a phone call. Declan rose and came to the bar. He did not speak in grand lines. He put a glass of water in front of Elena and left room for her to refuse pity. Elena, I don't need your pity. Her voice was steady but thin. She tucked hair behind her ear, the motion quick and automatic. Declan did not flinch. I don't mean pity. I can offer a couch at a friend's place for the night, or a quiet driver. I will not make you feel indebted. The word indebted landed, like a list Elena had been avoiding. She bristled because she had rehearsed being proud. Her mouth shaped a refusal and then stopped. The betrayal made her suspicious. She asked herself whether a stranger with a tailored coat that smelled faintly of cedar could be trusted. Marta returned and set her phone on the bar. Texted me from the airport, Marta. She tapped the message open and handed the phone to Elena. Elena read the short lines, I can't do this, I'm sorry. Pressure. I'll explain later. The words did not explain anything. Marta's thumbs hovered over the screen. He mentioned money. Marta, something about a loan he hasn't told you about. Elena felt heat behind her eyes. Suspicion hardened into a new edge. Did Jason leave because of money or because of fear? She folded her hands over her jacket and kept her voice flat. Where did he go? Elena. Declan watched the exchange and then slowly reached into his coat and produced a folded photograph. Elena saw the corner of it before he set it down between them. Her pulse jumped. The photograph showed Jason and two men Elena did not know, standing outside a bank with a man in a suit whose lapel pin said a name Elena recognized from city news. The faces were casual. The scene was dated. Elena's hand brushed the photo and pulled it away, as if the paper could burn. Why do you have that? Elena? And the question carried betrayal in it because it meant someone had been looking at parts of her life she'd kept private. Declan, I noticed signs you were being used. I looked because I thought someone should step in before someone else took more from you. If that feels like surveillance, I apologize. I will stop if you ask. His pause was measured. Elena's suspicion turned to anger. Her voice rose on the last word. You watched me. Who are you to decide that? Declan did not look away. I'm someone who can help tonight and step back when you say so, he answered. Marta. Elena, you can go to my place if you want. Please. The bartender set 2 towels on a stool as if reading the air. The bar became a small field where choices were made and defended. An hour later, Jason stormed back through the bar door. He was red-faced and breathless from running down a corridor. Elena, he said, voice high and fast, give me the ring. It was a mistake. Give it back. Guests looked toward the noise like birds startled in a tree. Elena stood and said, you left me. You left with a suitcase. Jason, you left. Her hands moved. She reached into her jacket and loosened the simple silver ring. She did not promise anything emotional. She did not beg. She placed the ring on the marble between them. Jason's fingers hovered over the ring, and then slammed down. "You can't do this to me." Elena. Jason's voice split, quick and nasal. He stepped forward and Marta moved between them. Declan moved faster. He put a hand near Jason's shoulder in a way that did not shout but said he would not let a scene get worse. Jason barked, "Get out of my way, who are you?" and tried to push past. Declan shifted his stance and used his size to close a lane. He spoke once, low, "Jason, leave." Now the bar grew tight with waiting. Jason's gestures stuttered. He backed toward the door with fingers pressed to his jaw. Staff came and escorted him out. After Jason left, the immediate danger ended, but the night did not let Elena drop into relief. She sat and folded her hands around the water glass until the condensation slicked her palms. Tears came then, not loud but steady, because the public humiliation had bloodied something private. Declan sat down across from her with no air of ceremony. He very quietly, "What do you want to do?" Elena considered the question as if weighing a contract. Pride one set of choices, practicality another. "Elena, I want to keep my dignity. I don't want charity." She looked at Declan, and then at Marta and the bartender, who had disappeared into the background work of cleaning champagne glasses. Declan nodded once, deliberately, then, "Well, do it your way. A driver to a small hotel room. No press, no interviews. I will cover the cost. You walk away when you want. I will not show up uninvited." The specificity mattered. Elena's shoulders loosened a fraction. She accepted the water glass and then the offer for a driver, but she set a boundary in one phrase. "I will not owe anyone for my life." Declan repeated the phrase without a counterstood. "You won't owe me anything personal." Elena's mouth formed a line that might have been a smile. Marta reached for Elena's phone and said, "I'll call Rosa, your sister." She should know. Elena agreed. She stood and gathered her things with exact movements, jacket over the arm, small purse from the table, ring left in view. She kept moving because movement erased the roar in her ears. The driver arrived as Declan promised, a low-slung sedan, the door opened by a gloved hand. Elena stepped in and felt the car pull away from bright hotel doors into a line of streetlights. In the back of the car, Elena. "Declan, why did you intervene?" He had stood by the curb while she climbed into the car. He answered, "Because I saw him speaking like someone who would take what someone else had built and throw it away for the wrong reasons." His voice had a quiet edge. Elena's suspicion returned and then changed shape into curiosity. "What reasons?" she asked. Declan looked at her with the steady gaze of someone who had decided facts mattered more than feeling. "There are people who profit when others break, Elena. I stopped one from crossing the line tonight." The driver glanced in the mirror. Elena nothing for a long time. They arrived at a modest hotel with a lobby that smelled faintly of coffee. Declan walked her to the desk, spoke briefly to the clerk, and paid without fuss. He did not attempt to enter the room. He stood in the hallway and said, "If you want to talk tomorrow, I'll wait at the cafe on 17th at 10. If you don't want me there, I won't be. Say the word." Elena's fingers fumbled at her ring again and then left it on the dresser under a lamp. She looked at Declan. There was a new tilt to her thinking. She had stepped away from one man and not yet decided whom to trust next. The next afternoon Marta came with a printed email forwarded to her that showed a string of messages from an address Jason used for work. The messages mentioned a loan and named a company Elena had heard of in passing and associated with aggressive collections. Marta read aloud, "I can't tell her. She'll be trapped." Elena listened while she rinsed a coffee cup in the hotel's sink. The sound of water was steady. Her hands shook more on the cup than they had the night before. Suspicion moved to a harder certainty. Jason had been avoiding a problem, not telling her, and leaving her in front of a wedding was his way to close the chapter. Declan showed up at the cafe at 10 as he said he would. He sat at a corner table near the window and kept his coat folded over his arm. When Elena entered, she felt a prick of awareness. She adjusted her jacket that was still warm with the hotel's dryer. Declan stood to offer his hand in a practical, not theatrical, gesture Elena, he said, voice low. We have a lead on who pushed Jason into a corner. If you want to know, you should hear it from me now. If you don't, tell me and I will stop. Elena hesitated. Her hesitation was not silence, but a pocket of decision. She wanted to hear, she wanted to be in control. Declan laid out names and dates and a short note that had been passed to him by a woman who worked in a municipal office. He produced a second photograph that placed Jason at a meeting with a man who had an aggressive reputation for calling in debts by threatening a family's business ties. The revelation changed Elena's understanding of Jason's flight into something more complex. He had been small in the face of pressure, not brave. Elena's first impulse moved from anger to a sharper disgust. So he lied to me and ran. Declan answered, yes. But someone else put him in that position. Elena felt the scene split open. The twist made her see the wedding not as only a betrayal but a pivot in a longer chain. They went through the facts quickly. Marta called from a page of numbers she had written down. The bartender showed up once more to ask if Elena wanted anything else. The dialogue tightened around duties and logistics. Elena, you can't let him get away with publicly humiliating you. Marta, voice steady. What do you want to do? Elena looked between Declan and Marta. She weighed options in the concrete forms they took: call the police, press charges, sue, or walk away quietly. Each choice had cost. She chose the one that returned control. I will not make this a courtroom play. I will reclaim my nights and my privacy. I want Jason to be gone from my life for good, not to be an ongoing performance. Her words were short and practical. That afternoon, a man in a cheap suit appeared at the cafe window and stared in. Elena saw him from the corner of her eye. The man did not enter. Declan noticed first and said, he should not be here. That external event, the man at the window, became a pivot. Elena's chest tightened. She had moved from betrayal to anger to guarded vigilance. She stood and left the cafe with Declan and Marta following her out to the sidewalk. The man crossed the street and kept walking. For a moment Elena considered chasing him, but she did not. She watched his back and felt something shift again. The immediate danger receded, but left a residue of watchfulness. Back at the hotel that evening, Elena sat in the bar doorway and looked at the simple silver ring where it lay on the marble, a small, polished circle that had once meant a promise and now meant a test. Declan stood in the doorway and did not close the distance. You can take it with you if you want, he said. Elena picked up the ring, turned it in her fingers, and then set it back down intentionally. Later, she would explain the gesture as necessary. Right then it was a way of marking a moment. I will accept help, on my terms. No one gets to buy my silence. Declan nodded and gave her the exact support she asked for. A secure driver, a contact at a legal aid clinic, and a promise not to show up without permission. Night reached the street in long bands of orange light. Elena stepped out of the bar and onto the pavement. She put the jacket around her shoulders and felt the warm air on her face. Declan watched from the doorway, not stepping forward, and then offered a quiet hand. Elena did not take it in a way that promised anything beyond that moment. She took the hand because she needed a practical exit. The hand closed for an instant and then opened. The night swallowed the hotel's light as she walked away with a driver waiting. Behind her, Declan returned to the doorway and pulled the collar of his cashmere coat up against the evening. Elena walked into the car and the driver pulled out, leaving the ring on the marble to catch a small square of light from the street lamp. Elena left the chapter of that night with a concrete decision in place. She had refused pity and accepted specific help that preserved her dignity. She had set a boundary with Declan and a clear rule with Marta. The final image stayed sharp in the hotel bar. Elena placing the ring on the table and stepping into the night while a man she barely knew stood in the doorway offering a practical, non-intrusive promise. The door closed behind him, and the sound of the latch clicked once. A glass hit the marble and everyone looked up. Elena flinched as the whiskey sloshed over the rim and left a dark ring on the bar. Shame pressed at her throat. She kept her chin down and wiped her face with the heel of her hand. The bartender set a towel by her wrist and asked, "Are you okay?" in a voice meant to be small and useful. The room smelled of lemon oil and spilled ice. Elena answered with a half-breathe, "I'm fine," and the word broke. Within the first minutes she had to name the problem plainly. Her fiancé had left them before the ceremony. The corridor where he had walked out 2 nights before replayed in her head the wheels of his suitcase on hotel carpet, the door click, the hum of the corridor light. That memory stuck in her throat and turned into a steady, red heat that she could not ignore. Betrayal sat at the center of the noise in her skull, and it shaped every breath she took. Elena had not meant to end up at this bar. She had told Maya to go home, then sat when the bar's low light opened around her like a halo that she could not reach. The opening used 2 things from the formula: abandonment on display and an inciting human contact. She kept her hands busy, twisting the silver ring on her finger until the metal warmed to her skin. Maya burst in 2 stools later. "Breathing fast, Elena," she said, thrusting a phone across the bar to show a string of messages and a shaky video from the wedding hall. Elena glanced. The screen showed Jason laughing with his coat slung over his shoulder, then a group of men carrying boxes. The timestamps were clear. The phone's notification sound had attracted other patrons' attention. Some leaned away, others leaned in. Sophia, the bartender, pressed a damp towel into Elena's hand and said, "You're not alone here." Sophia's tone was practical, not sentimental. She cleared a coaster and slid it close. A man at the far end of the bar rose quietly and walked toward the register. He carried himself without fuss. His coat was a plain cashmere draped over his arm. He left his wallet on the bar with a silent gesture that covered the tab. Elena glanced up for the first time and met steel blue eyes that did not probe but held steady. He placed a napkin on the counter and said, "You should not be out here alone." His voice was low and measured. Declan Hart's offer arrived like a small machine of civility. Pay the bill, hand over an overcoat, call a driver. He did not kneel or demand thanks. He offered a choice. He placed a business card on the bar without fanfare and tapped it with a finger. "A driver will wait if you want one," he said. He refused to let pity shape the moment. That refusal pulled something in Elena the wrong way and the right way at once. Shame became hot anger. Elena turned the ring so the scissor smooth metal cut a line of white on her knuckle. "Why would I let a stranger do this for me?" she asked, but her voice was thin. "Because you don't have to accept pity, Declan. You can accept help that leaves you standing on your feet." He leaned back, watching her choose. Maya planted both palms on the counter and spoke fast. "The left by choice, Elena. I have the timestamp." He texted about leaving. He was smiling in the video. Her words spilled over other patrons, now whispering the same syllables. Left, fiancé, wedding, viral. Jason arrived like a bad joke at the doorway. He froze on the threshold, eyes searching for a version of the scene he could control. His hair was tousled, his shirt untucked, his hands empty. He met Elena and tried to shape his smile into responsibility. "Elena, Jason," and the name sounded like currency he hoped to redeem. "Need to talk. This is a misunderstanding. I can explain." Elena kept her hands on the bar and did not look at him. "Explain standing with strangers who have my pictures. Explain leaving the church." Her voice sharpened. Other patrons turned. A woman at the corner table set down her fork. "You don't have to do this here." Jason tried. He stepped forward. Declan's hand moved before Elena realized he meant to do anything. He closed the small distance between him and Jason and tilted his head. "You should leave," he said quietly. "No." Jason laughed, a forced, short laugh. "Who are you?" He asked some patron with an opinion. "I'm the man who paid her tab." Declan answered. "And the man asking you to leave." The room tightened. A man at the bar muttered, "This is getting interesting." Sophia stepped back. She kept her hands on the wooden rail as if bracing against the storm. Maya pulled a voice note from her phone and pressed play. The note was Jason's voice, joking bright, saying, "I can't believe this." Him off the hook. The audio had the clatter of clinking glasses behind it. Then Maya displayed a photograph with a timestamp that matched the voice note. The photograph showed Jason with two men at a downtown bar, holding a bottle and smiling at the camera. Elena listened to the voice note. Heat left her face in a slow, dangerous wave. Shame curdled into public fury. She stood up. The bar's stools scraped across the floor. Jason read, "Elena," and the name landed like a command. You walked out. You chose to be somewhere else the day we had our vows. You chose to leave me. Jason's expression shifted. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried a different tack. "You're being dramatic." He said he had issues. "People have bad days. Bad days don't come with a suitcase and laughs." Maya snapped at you, was celebrating leaving. You at there followed a quick volley of lines, fast, blunt, and raw among the people at the bar. The argument hit the required rapid back and forth. Jason, why? Elena, I wasn't ready. Jason answered. You left her at the altar. Declano, I did what I had to do. Jason shot back. You had to do what? Maya demanded. Run. Dishonor her. You don't get to say that. Jason stammered. I do. Maya deserves better than your excuses. People in the room repeated Maya's last line as if it were a verdict. A patron at the far end whispered, "Has finished." Jason balked at the shift in the room. He tried to pivot toward explanation, toward shrugs and sorries, but his small gestures could not erase the time-stamped evidence. Elena saw the change in him. He avoided her eyes. His jaw worked. He mouthed something that was not heard. At that moment the chapter demanded a clear external event. The bar turned from rumor to judgment. The bartender brought a receipt folder to the center of the bar like a gavel. A woman who had been filming lowered her phone with a face that registered triumph and pity. Elena steadied herself against the counter. She felt anger ebb to a cold, precise clarity. Her hands no longer trembled when she reached for the ring. She slipped it off and placed it on the bar top where the wood grain showed a ring of spilled drink. Jason, she said, voice low and controlled, I am not yours to forgive. I am not yours to fix. Her words landed hard enough to stop the small, rising sound of argument. Jason lunged forward. Hand out. Elena, please. Don't do this. We can work. Don't touch me. She said, "Oh, not touch me." She pushed his hand away with her free palm. Maya's fingers tightened on her jacket sleeve. Declan moved with the same economy he had used earlier. He put a hand at Jason's elbow and steered him toward the door. He did not shout. He did not humiliate. He guided. Leave now, Declan. Jason twisted free, stepping back. He glared at Declan. Who are you to tell me what to do? He spat. A man who won't let you create a scene for the sake of your reputation. Declan answered it out. His voice contained the kind of quiet force that made other men weigh their next movements. Jason's mouth opened and closed. He took 2 steps to the door, then stopped. He turned toward Elena one last time. You're overreacting, he said. Jason, read. Elena, close enough now that the alcohol breath at his lips was a fact she could note. You left me when vows were supposed to bind us. You chose other people over our plans. You took the day that mattered. She folded the ring into her palm and slid it into her pocket with one motion that sealed a choice. Standing there, she accepted the loss, but on her terms. That small act, tucking the ring away, was a decision that shifted the room's angle. It was not a grand speech. It was workmanlike, decisive. Declan opened the door with the same controlled patience he had used all night and showed Jason out. Outside, on the sidewalk under a sodium street lamp, Elena breathed through a new set of sensations. Shame had changed to something colder, then to cautious relief. Her shoulders that had been clenched loosened in tiny increments. Maya kept talking. She delivered a blunt schedule for the next day: family calls, refund requests, a neat list of immediate tasks. Sophia came out with 2 steaming paper cups and pressed one into Elena's hand. Declan stayed back by the curb. He did not follow them immediately. He offered her the coat he had meant to leave earlier and set a small card on top of it. No pity, he said, just a practical offer. An accountant who knows how to untangle vendor holds. A place to sleep tonight if needed. No strings. Call if you choose. He did not reach for thanks. He simply folded his hands and waited a beat so Elena could accept or refuse on her own. Elena examined the card, a name, a number, a small company name she did not recognize. She traced the embossed lettering with a fingertip. Her mind made a list of immediate problems: cancel the venue, answer the texts, call her mother, find a clean shirt. Each item felt heavy and oddly manageable when laid out. Maya, you should take the coat. At least you won't be freezing. Her tone was quick and practical. She nudged Elena toward a taxi idling near the curb. Elena hesitated. The memory of the corridor with the suitcase still flickered. The scrape of wheels, the click, the sudden absence. That memory had been the hinge for the last 48 hours. I don't want any charity. Her jaw tightened. Declan replied, this isn't charity. It's a practical hand. You for nothing and him offering one thing you can use. He spoke plainly. He did not look to impress anyone. Elena took the coat. She slid her arms into sleeves that smelled faintly of cedar. She folded the business card and slid it into the inside pocket of the coat. She did not look at Declan. She did not offer thanks. The taxi drove them away. Inside, Maya rattled on about phone calls and possible lodging and plans to keep Elena from being alone that night. Elena listened but answered in short sentences. Call my mother. No, don't post anything online. She repeated 3 times that she did not want pity in photographs. Her voice was clipped but clear. At a mid-chapter point, the story needed a mini cliffhanger. On the ride, Elena's phone buzzed with a new video link. She pressed it open with a thumb that refused to be still. The clip was short. Jason on stage in a small club, laughing with friends, toasting. The camera lingered on his empty ring finger as if the camera knew it mattered. The clip ended with a screenshot of Jason's face, smiling. The caption read, "New start." Elena swallowed. The taxi's window fogged with the heat of her breath. Emotion shifted here again, anger to numbness, then to resolution. Elena's hands tightened on the coat collar. Maya reached across and tapped her knee. We'll get you through this. Maya will make sure they know the truth. Her words were steady. When they returned to the bar the next evening for some quiet closure, Elena insisted on paying for the coat repair. Sophia hugged her fast, and Briefview stood up to him. Sophia. She kept her voice low, practical praise that did not ask for a response. Declan appeared again at a table near the window as if he had expected Elena to come back. He gave no grand speech. He slid into an empty chair like he was a guest who had been invited. Did you sleep? He asked. Elena answered in a curt, factual way. 2 hours. I called my mother. I filed a complaint with the venue. I told my sister. Jason's friends posted a video. Him changing locks. She listed tasks like a ledger. Declan listened. When he spoke, he said, I can put you in touch with someone who handles vendor fallout. She will not yawn at your invoices. She will handle it. He named the registrar and gave specifics, office hours, what documents to bring, a small fee structure. Maya joined them at the table, leaning in with new information. The voice note had another call in the background. Maya, someone from Jason's group said. He needed out. It sounds like more than a one-night escape. Her eyes darted to Declan and then back to Elena as if testing whether she should say more. Sophia set 2 small plates of olives and bread on the table without asking. Eat something. She already looked like you haven't slept. Elena forced down 2 olives and let the salt work against the sour taste of adrenaline. Jason did not reappear, but his presence threaded through their conversation like an ache. The group catalogued evidence and choices, who to call, who to block, what to demand from the venue. Each item was an action. Each action pulled Elena's attention away from inward spirals and back toward logistics. At one point, a man at the next table raised his glass and said quietly, She's handling it. Good for her. The small public nod acted like a patch on raw skin. Declan kept details practical. He suggested a temporary PO box for forwarded mail, a nearby apartment repairman who could change locks at short notice, and an attorney who specialized in vendor disputes. He named prices and schedules so Elena could plan. His voice was businesslike, peppered with the occasional frank remark. You should not have to absorb a cancelled line fee. If their staff left, he handed over numbers and brief, useful instructions. A twist arrived when Maya produced a screenshot from one of Jason's friends who had posted an apology for the group's behavior. But the apology included a line that suggested coordination. We didn't plan to hurt her. The phrase suggested the departure had been discussed among others. The revelation hardened Elena's face. She felt the subtle shift from private betrayal to public collusion. The discovery changed how she would approach next steps. It was a small twist, but it altered the investigation she and Maya were already plotting. The scene moved toward the climax. The bar was fuller that night. Word had spread. 2 men who had been at the wedding appeared and gave statements to Maya. They described seeing Jason leave with a duffel, laughing, saying, "Finally free." Their testimony lined up with the voice note. Elena stood again at the bar with the ring stashed in her pocket. The room carried the noise of plates and low talk. She placed her palm on the counter and looked at Jason's name like a stain she had decided to isolate. When Jason reappeared as if to rescue his reputation, he found no audience. The confrontation at the center of the chapter arrived clean. Elena returned the ring publicly in front of enough witnesses to make his attempts at salvage impossible. She declared, simply, "This ring is not for you." The clarity in her voice ended the argument. Jason tried to intervene with the quick, practiced lines of someone who had always been able to reframe his mistakes. Maya and Sophia countered in short, sharp exchanges that left no room for his excuses. Declan stood quietly at her side, his presence a steadying rod. After Jason left and the room settled, Elena did something small and decided she would accept one practical help to start sorting a future she would build. She took Declan's card from the coat, turned it over, and kept the number. She did not promise anything else. Maya offered to sleep on the couch at Elena's apartment for the week. Sophia wrote down a phone number for a cleaner who would come the next morning. Declan offered a driver to take them to the venue to collect belongings, and he said he would be discreet about the pickups so Elena would not be photographed. Each offer required Elena's choice, another test of agency. The final paragraphs needed to tie directly to concrete events in this chapter and leave a clear, situational beat. Elena folded the card and tucked it into the inside pocket of the coat again. She turned the key in the taxis lock with steady hands. Declan watched from the sidewalk, then slid a small, plain envelope across the table to Mia, as if closing a ledger. Elena stood, buttoned the coat, and walked out into the night with Maya at her side and the silver ring safe in her pocket. Declan watched until they turned the corner, then stepped back into the bar, folding his hands as if he had finished a transaction. The door closed behind him. Outside, Elena put her hand to the coat pocket, felt the business card, and pressed it flat with her thumb. She did not call anyone on the spot. She did not make a vow. She had the card, the coat, a list, and Maya's steady presence. She let the city sound register, tires on wet asphalt, a distant siren, the hum of a streetlight. She walked on, and the night moved with her decision. Elena pushed the glass door open and found Jason shouting her name in the center of the boardroom, cameras already trained on him. Betrayal tightened her jaw before she could move. She felt the old sting of being abandoned, the same scrape from the hallway when Jason left with a suitcase. A lawyer said, "Elena, you should sit." Elena kept her feet. Within seconds she understood the stakes. Jason was turning their private collapse into a public attack that could cost her job and humiliate her family. Elena walked to the table and placed her palms on the cool glass. She smelled coffee and the metallic tang of camera batteries. She heard Maya's clipped voice across the room. "Elena, well, handle this. Please trust me." Elena nodded once and then looked at Jason. Betrayal stayed with her, but another feeling rose, anger that sharpened her words. "Jason, Elena." And her voice did not break. Stop using my life as a press release. Her hands tightened on the table. The lawyers and the company representative turned toward him. Cameras clicked. Jason's face reddened. He shot a look that was equal parts panic and calculation. Jason answered fast. You walked out first, Elena. You left everything on the table, and then posted that post. He jabbed a finger at the junior associate who had set a tablet on the conference table. You started that narrative. His words aimed to pin blame on her and to flip the room's sympathy toward him. Maya moved like a blade. Jason read, we are here to mediate facts, not perform for cameras. Maya's posture said she had prepared for this. Elena watched Maya's steady hands tug a stack of papers forward. Elena felt shame flare and then contract into a practical focus. Shame of being shown to the world, then resolved to answer with facts. The junior associate tapped the tablet and said, we have a set of messages and photos relevant to the dispute. He handed the tablet to Maya. Elena's eyes flicked to the screen. On it were wedding photos, staged angles, a text thread labeled Jason. Elena saw a photo of Jason placing a box on a nightstand. She remembered him leaving with a suitcase. Now the image implied a plan. An emotion shift came quick: betrayal, suspicion, anger. Jason's voice rose. Those messages are edited. I didn't. He stopped. His practiced smile failed. Declan sat back in the shadowed corner, hands folded, watching with steel blue eyes. Elena had seen Declan earlier that night in the reception area, his presence unreadable. Now he listened like he had been holding pieces together in his head. A company representative cleared her throat. You can't let this escalate. If these materials are authentic, they show a coordinated attempt to control the public story around the engagement. Cameras moved closer. Someone murmured. Elena felt the pressure of sight, of judgment. She braced and forced her voice to stay factual. Those photos are my home photos. Elena, that thread is mine. The message timestamps match when I was home the week before the ceremony. She pushed the tablet toward Maya. Check the timestamps. Check the metadata. She was not pleading. She was asking for what would set the record straight. The room became a machine for evidence. A junior associate opened a laptop and fed image files into a reader. The screen showed edits to message screenshots, highlighted cuts and pasted segments. Maya, these edits show signs of tampering, and some files linked to an account with ties to Mr. Reed's devices. The words landed like a strike. Jason's hands fidgeted. He tried to smile and failed again. Jason lunged toward the tablet. That's not true. That's not true. He looked at Elena with a sudden accusation. You did this to protect yourself. You made him look like the victim. The tone tried to paint Elena as manipulative. Shame stung, then shifted into hot anger. Elena would not let him rewrite the scene where he had left with a suitcase. Jason, Elena, short and cold. You left with your suitcase. I stood in the hall in my dress. The door clicked. Her words named a concrete memory, one the room had not witnessed, but which the security footage could confirm. She did not say I felt betrayed in the abstract. She described what happened and where. Jason's mouth opened. He started a sentence and let it fall. Then he turned to the cameras and tried to set a public tone. I wanted privacy. A cameraman moved forward. Declan rose from his chair and walked to the reception entrance. He looked like a man deciding whether to intervene. Maya caught Declan's eye and mouthed a word Elena could not read. Outside the glass wall, a building security guard arrived with a thin envelope and slid it across to Maya under the table. Maya unfolded a sheet and read 2 lines, then her face tightened. There's more. She said aloud, a leak of private wedding photos, and a scheduling email showing someone seeded material to an outside account. An external event occurred again. A new file arrived that changed the tenor of the room. Jason's face shifted from defiance to calculation. He barked, this is a smear. He glanced at the junior associate. You planted those files. The associate shook his head. No. I received them from a source and forwarded them. When asked to review, the answer fell like a stone. Declan stepped forward then, his voice low. Elena Morales, he said. And the room quieted. He will make a discreet offer that removes his leverage. and keeps this from going further into your past and your family's line of work. Elena heard the measured cadence she had noticed before. Declan did not beat around the subject. His presence was a hand offered without spectacle. Elena felt a spike of hesitation. The offer placed her between two choices: accept help that would protect her public life but feel like charity, or refuse any outsider's aid and fight the smear alone. The emotion shifted: shame, pride, cautious hope. She remembered the night at the bar when a stranger watched her wipe her face and left a towel at her wrist. The memory from that dim counter sat beside the hallway scene, both concrete and sharp. Jason moved closer and blocked the reception doorway as if he owned that space. He pulled Elena to the side corridor and cornered her with a cheap tactics: "You take his money, Elena." "Jason." Voice low. "Everyone will say you sold the story." He jabbed his finger. "You will look cheap." His goal was to push her into choosing pride over safety and to make her doubt Declan's motives. Elena stepped back until the wall pressed against her shoulder. Her hands curled into fists. "Jason, stop. Don't make this about me taking charity." She kept her voice even. "You left. You made your choice." Jason leaned in. His mannerisms shifted from charm to a brittle edge. "You don't understand what I stand to lose," he hissed. The exchange escalated quickly into a confrontation with fast dialogue. "Jason, you left." Elena's words were short. "You drove him away." Jason snapped. "Waited in the corridor." "Elena, you posted things online." "Jason, you walked out with a suitcase." "Elena." The corridor smelled of corporate carpet and lemon cleaning spray. A colleague passed the glass doors and looked hard at the pair. The external world intruded. Elena heard footsteps and distant camera shutters. She pushed off the wall and left the corridor before Jason could follow. Back in the reception, Declan approached Elena in a quieter tone. "Can fund a legal buffer and cover investigative work," he said. "He won't make statements. And I won't ask for anything in return, except your clear consent to let me act discreetly on your behalf." Elena blinked. His offer emphasized control rather than obligation. He did not ask for her gratitude. He offered options. "Elena, one question. Why are you involved?" "Declan." She looked at him directly. He kept his gaze steady. "Because your dignity matters here," he said. The sentence was precise and avoidance-free. It did not romanticize. The room felt suddenly functional: people in specific roles, not a stage for pity. A second external event broke the room's tension. The junior associate pushed another file toward Maya and said, "There is also an email trail from Ms. Reed's corporate account used to seed pieces to a public relations contractor last month." The admission altered the arc of suspicion again. Maya scanned the file and said, "This looks coordinated." The room's sympathy tilted more clearly toward Elena. Elena sat down then, hands pressed into her knees. She used short breaths to steady herself. Her mind worked through rules she had set for herself since the hallway that night. Do not accept charity that erases agency. Do not be a spectacle. Declan had offered a practical solution rather than a performance. Elena's internal scale shifted from anger to clarity. An aide moved into the reception with an envelope marked security footage. Maya clicked play on a monitor. The clip showed the hallway from Chapter 1. Jason dragging a suitcase, a hand on the handle, the door click. The image matched Elena's words. The room watched the exact moment she had described. A murmur rose. An emotion shift landed: suspicion, confirmation, freedom to act. Jason's face went white. He tried to speak, but the footage gave him nothing to work with. Someone in the crowd whispered, "He planned this," another person said. He staged the sympathy. Jason's attempts to control the narrative unraveled. He stepped back like a man who had lost his footing. Declan moved to the side and spoke quietly to Maya. "If we file for injunctive relief and a statement about tampering, the company will drop any reputational claim. I will underwrite the legal costs for that process." Maya nodded and said, "We need Elena's authorization to proceed." That requirement put the agency squarely in Elena's hands. Elena looked at the monitor, then at Declan, then at Jason. She saw Jason's crisis in his quick breath and shaky hands. She saw the junior associate's uneasy glance. She saw Maya's professional steadiness. She felt anger, then calculation. She would not accept anything that erased her control. She steadied her voice and said, "I authorize the legal action, and I want a written plan showing what is being done and why. I will sign what I must to preserve my privacy, but I will not be spoken for." Her decision was a clear action that set boundaries. Declan nodded, understood. Maya handed the laptop for Elena to sign a digital authorization. Elena tapped the screen and left a short, exact signature. She felt a small relief move through her shoulders. The crowd near the glass wall watched, some with pity, some with curiosity. Someone took a photo. Someone else sent a message. The world continued to measure things, but Elena had taken back a piece of control. An hour later, the boardroom emptied toward the rooftop event where the company planned a small sunset reception. Elena walked to the elevator with Sofia at her side. Sofia's steps were brisk. She kept a hand near Elena's elbow as if to steady her in a world that wanted to examine every bruise. Elena's voice was low. "Sofia, stay with me a minute. If anything happens, I want you to speak up." "Sofia, I will." "I'm here." Elena at the rooftop. Strings of lights were already warming into the dusk. The event felt intimate until someone in the crowd called, "Is this about the wedding?" A small ripple of phones appeared. Declan was near the bar watching. Jason chose that moment to attempt a final public humiliation. He stepped onto a planter lip and raised his voice. "Everyone, listen. The truth is," he began. Declan walked directly toward Jason, crossing the rooftop with measured steps. Elena followed him partway and then paused. Jason tried to form his narrative. He tossed out accusations and half-sentences to a cluster of guests. She staged it. She wanted sympathy. He pointed at Elena and smiled hard. "Do you not see?" The guests exchanged looks. Sofia moved close to Elena and said, "Let him speak." "Let Declan respond." Declan stopped in front of Jason and showed a small tablet. He set it on the planter rim and pressed play. The screen displayed the unedited messages, followed by a clean metadata readout tying the edits to an external account and then to a contractor's email. The rooftop fell silent. A few phones continued to record, many lowered. Jason's face changed again, this time into something like calculation collapsing into panic. He tried to interrupt. "That's not," he started. Declan's voice was low and controlled. "These are the facts. The chain of custody shows tampering and a false narrative. Mayor Reed has publicly tried to weaponize Ms. Morale's private life." The statement was factual, without flourish. A rapid back and forth erupted as friends and colleagues pressed Jason. "Is this true?" Someone called. "No." "Jason, did you contact the contractor?" Another guest asked. "Did not Jason, who paid for the seeding?" A third voice asked. Jason's answers frayed. I can't talk about corporate things here." His voice became thin. Declan did not raise his volume. He let the fact sit. Elena stepped forward, took off her simple silver ring, and held it in her palm. She did not offer it to Declan. She did not make a dramatic speech. She walked to the planter rim and set the ring on top. Her fingers lingered for a moment on cool stone. Then she closed her hand. "Elena." "Sofia," voice quick. "Are you sure?" Elena looked at Sofia with a small, steady expression as the action was concrete. She returned the ring and refused the role of a woman rescued by pity. The move shifted the rooftop's attention from spectacle to the precise choices she was making. Jason tried a final plea to the crowd. "People, you don't know everything." He searched faces for allies. A few guests shifted uneasily. Declan watched Jason's attempts and then turned to Elena. "Did not have to do that," he said quietly. "You could have let us manage everything." Elena answered. "I needed to show him not surrendering myself to the story. I will accept help, but not a life written for me." Her reply named a boundary through action and words. After the exposure, security and company counsel moved in to calm the crowd. Jason was escorted out under protest. He called Elena one last time as he passed. "Elena, you can't do this to me." Elena watched him go. The rooftop felt emptier with him gone. Declan stayed with Elena and Sofia as the lights blinked on across the city. The immediate threat had faded. The aftermath dropped into a steady, practical rhythm. Declan arranged for the legal statement to be issued, and a short press release went out clarifying tampering and inviting privacy. Mayer drafted a restraining clause that would stop the contractor from releasing further material. Elena sat in a quiet corner of the rooftop lounge and breathed in the evening air. Her hands were still shaking from the adrenaline, but the shaking softened. Elena and Sophia walked down to a nearby late-night cafe. The table by the terrace was small and round. A barista left a steaming cup on it and stepped away. Elena took off the ring again and turned it on her finger. She thought of the corridor click of the marble bar rim where she had wiped her face, of Declan's precise offer. She placed the ring on the table and pushed it toward the center. The action felt like a boundary drawn in a concrete place. Sophia reached across and touched Elena's wrist. So what's next, Sophia? Elena looked up and said, I will file for what I need to repair what's been damaged. I will not hide. She named a plan, hire financial counsel, repair workplace statements, keep her name clean. She refused big speeches. She spoke in terms of appointments and phone calls. A small twist arrived when a barista handed Elena a folded note with a number on it. Declan's assistant left a message confirming a meeting with a counselor Declan recommended, and a list of investigators who would work only under Elena's directions. Elena read it and then tore a corner off to keep the number. The twist confirmed that Declan's help would proceed only under her control, not as a takeover. Elena stood up and pushed the chair back. The cafe's terrace lights made warm circles on the pavement. She picked up the ring one last time and let it roll across her palm before releasing it on the table. The ring sat there, silver catching the warm light. Sophia, Elena, I'm proud of you. Elena smiled once, a small, real half-smile she used when she gathered herself. Declan joined them for a moment by the cafe entrance and spoke quietly to Elena. You did this your way, he said. His voice was low and steady. If you ever need a buffer, you'll find me willing to preserve what you want to keep private. Elena nodded. Thank you, she said. She did not promise anything more than that. Her choice had been pragmatic and intact. Jason tried one last contact by sending a terse email that night demanding a retraction. Elena's legal team filed the necessary response and closed the communication channel. The company affirmed the findings of tampering and notified the contractor's firm of potential legal consequences. Things moved with paperwork, signatures, and deadlines, concrete acts that replaced spectacle. That night Elena walked alone for a few blocks after leaving the cafe, hands in the pockets of her worn leather jacket. She kept her posture steady. She had a list of appointments in her phone, names of lawyers and investigators, and a plan for speaking to her mother in the morning. She felt tired and watchful, but also a different kind of steadiness that came from naming steps and following them. When she reached the small apartment building she shared with a roommate, Sophia waved from the sidewalk and then watched the elevator close. Elena inhaled the dry night air and felt the small weight of the ring's absence. The silver band sat in a cafe cup holder across town, no speech attached. The chapter's conflict had resolved. Jason's attempted smear had been revealed. Declan's discreet help had been accepted on Elena's terms, and Elena had returned the ring as a clear, physical boundary. Before she went inside, Elena took one last look at her phone and saw a short message from Maya, all statements filed. We proceed at first light. Elena typed back, thank you. I signed. She slid the phone into her pocket and climbed the stairs. The final paragraph closes on a concrete beat. The elevator dinged, the door closed, and Elena pressed the button to her floor with a steady finger.